you've been battling through COVID. So it could be for COVID-related expenses or the expenses you came across while you pivoted your business. When you're going through the application, or once you complete the application, you need to submit it to partners@rto7.ca. All of this information is also on our website, rto7.ca. When you go onto the homepage, there's a really big black box right above the fold. Just click on that and it takes you to the right page. The applications and the supporting documentation to this conversation that I just talked about, again, is on rto7.ca. You'll get tired of hearing me say rto7.ca, but I just want to make sure everyone goes to the right spot. I want to make sure you understand that this is an adjudicated process. So that means it's competitive. There's only $500,000 this round. And we want to make sure that everyone understands that it is competitive. So please answer every question on the application. If you leave a question blank, your score will be lower, because we won't have an answer to that question. So please make sure you do that. We designed the application trying to keep it as simple as possible. And we also wanted to make sure that you didn't have to submit financial documents, which was originally requested. So that's why there's questions around differences in revenue and differences in employment numbers. So that's why those two questions are in there. And it's important that you definitely fill in those parts to make sure. We also were able to not have you provide other documentation like reference letters or other stuff that might take a long time to put together. But the main reason was we didn't want you to have to provide income statements. We all know that you don't want to go through that expense at this time. You've got enough going on. We will confirm receipt of every application. It's usually, right now we're pacing at under 24 hours turnaround. If you haven't received a confirmation from us and you applied prior to January 13th, please contact us tomorrow, or you can send us an email this evening. Because we have had we found that there are a couple of servers that aren't delivering to us. We found one in Owen Sound. So we don't understand why, because we've tested that email address in a lot of different places and it seems to work. So just please be sure that if you haven't heard from us and you've applied before January 13th, please let us know. And as we go forward, you should receive a response from us within 24 hours. One of the issues that has come up, so far we have over 45 applications in, and something that we've seen happen quite often is that the applications are incomplete. And sometimes it's the easy stuff like an email address or your web address or even your address. So we really do need that information. This document helps us form a legal agreement later on. So please complete every section of that application and it'll save us a lot of time. Otherwise, we'll be coming back to you and asking you to do it later, and that will take time. So there would be another reason we would send an application back to you, and it's we're asking for some clarification. We may not understand what you're actually doing. Most of the time we do. It's fairly straightforward, but every once in a while somebody's got a pretty inventive idea, which is really kind of cool, and we want to make sure we understand it so we can explain it during the adjudication process if that's required. So we'll be asking for some clarifying information. So the adjudication process would be after we've received the applications, there's an adjudication process. The adjudication process, there'll be one person from each municipality that will be a part of that adjudication committee. We'll be evaluating the entire application. There's a very large percentage of it that is taken from those questions, which makes it a little bit easier for us on the adjudication side when we look at those questions in change in revenue and change in employment and things of that nature. We've asked those questions so we can get that taken care of quickly. So we're hoping we've been able to cut down on the length of time it takes us to adjudicate each individual application. We're expecting somewhere around 100 to 150 applications. So we want to make sure it's as streamlined as possible and as fair as possible too. We can take some of the subjective evaluation out of it. That would be a good thing, and we've done that with a number of the questions. But one way to combat the subjective evaluation is there will be 5 adjudicators adjudicating separately and submitting separately. So we're hoping that will balance things out as well. We have a frequently asked question document that's on our main page of RTO7, or on the COVID Tourism Response Fund page on RTO7.ca. So if you do have a question, if you wouldn't mind checking there first, and if you don't get an answer to your question, please reach out to us at that time. That will just keep things rolling a little bit quicker. That document will change quite often. We had some changes that came in today that were confirmed with us today, which was really quite exciting for a number of businesses. It took into account seasonality. We had a number of businesses that may only have 30 to 35 year-round employees, but when they're in their peak season, they may go above 99 employees. Those businesses will now be accepted. So that's pretty exciting news. It really will help out a lot more businesses. Okay. The timing for this process. So the applications will close on January 31st, just before midnight. That date won't change. To date, we have applications that total over $500,000. So for it to change would have meant we were under that $500,000 amount. Doesn't mean that everyone's going to get exactly what they've asked for, because it is a competitive process. And there's only so much money to go around. We're going to make sure that we'll try to be as fair as, well, we will be fair, but we'll try to get help to as many businesses as possible. So that application will close. Now, if the applications require a lot of clarifications that come in at that last minute, which we're expecting, or they require us to go back and ask to make the applications complete, that will slow the process down. Right now, we're hoping to have the adjudication process complete by February 15th and the applicants notified by February 15th. And once the applicants have been notified, there is a legal agreement that has to be entered into between the applicant and RTO7. Okay, and that we hope to have completed by March 15th. And then once you know that you've been successful, you'll probably be spending that money ahead of time, and we want the receipts, all the spending completed by March 31st, and the receipts as soon as possible. We have a lot of businesses that have already sent their receipts to us because they did the work last spring or last summer and the fall, so that's great. We won't have to worry about that part. But if you're still doing the work now, or you're going to be doing the work in March, when that receipt has been received when that invoice has been received and you can provide proof of payment, then you'd submit it to us. So the things that are really going to affect this the most will be volume. Are the documents completed properly? The application in particular, has it been completed properly? And when your invoices and proof of payment are submitted, that they're accurate as well. So there are a lot of steps to this process. They're the steps that are required by the funder. A lot of verification that has to happen as we go through this. And right now we have 2 staff that are working on this approximately 5 to 6 hours a day. We're bringing a 3rd in now to help us with our checking over the financial side to make sure we haven't missed something. In total, each application will be looked at least 10 times through this process, 5 times with the adjudicators and at least 5 times by our staff. So we're hoping we don't miss anything, but we're making every effort to make sure that we're on top of this for you. We want to get the money to you as quickly as possible. And if we find that we may have to make a couple of phone calls or a couple of emails to get clarification on stuff, we're going to make every effort to make sure that you've got the best application to put forward as possible. This is not an us and them situation. This is very much a we. we all want you to succeed with this and get as much as you possibly can out of the program. Excuse me. Excuse me. I'm open to questions now, Rob, if you like.
All right, thank you very much, Bill. So I will just start with a few that I had submitted in advance. So if anyone has anything else, please put them in the Q&A box there. So the first one here is there assistance available for farmers markets? Would that apply through this program, Bill?
Yeah, again, if they serve the tourists and they are keeping the tourists and their employees safe, then yes, there is.
Okay, so that would be the same for the next question regarding flea markets, if they do get a lot of tourists.
Yeah.
So this business was unable to open at all during the summer of 2020, and it's questionable if they will be allowed in 2021. Do they apply assuming that they will be proceeding with precautions?
You know, that might be best if we have a direct conversation with them tomorrow, if we don't mind. If they want to email me at bsullivan@rto7.ca, I'll reach back out. I need to understand a little bit more, Rob, I think.
Okay, for sure. Yep. So if that was your question, please get in touch with Bill. Does equipment purchased to improve online content marketing and website presence, like cameras, a staff person, or software, qualify?
This fund is not for marketing related activities, but if they were putting in an online reservation system to help control the number of customers coming through their restaurant at a certain time, that would qualify, or they're doing touchless payment systems or things along that nature. But if it's marketing related, I'm sorry, it doesn't qualify.
Marketing does not. All right, I own a small business and I am the owner operator. Am I eligible for the funding if I have no employees?
Yes, we've decided that that type of person is an employee because they're face to face with the consumer.
Right. We run a pet care boarding and daycare. Many tourists bring their dogs to Meaford, and we care for their pets as they explore the Grey and Bruce area. Are we eligible?
Brand new question. Haven't had that one before. I'll have to double check on that one.
Okay. And is that another good one for them to follow up with you, Bill, with that email address?
Please. I have the memory of a goldfish, so yes.
Right. After reading the application thoroughly, it does read as though we should be submitting financial receipts and estimates. That is correct?
That's correct, yes.
Would you be able to elaborate a little bit more on the eligibility criteria for retail? Retail stores heavily dependent on tourism may also be considered. In the PPE COVID-19 Recovery Funds guidelines, the definition was defined as an operator that has direct access to tourists and relies directly on those tourists for a significant portion of their revenue, an estimated 10%. In my understanding, heavily dependent is probably more than 10%.
Yeah, if we purposely didn't put a number on that, because it's different for each community. But if you do rely on tourists, then you should apply.
Okay, great. Are new businesses available or eligible to apply for the program?
Businesses need to have been in business prior to January 1, 2020 for this program.
All right. Can we submit receipts in excess of 20,000, knowing some may not be accepted pending interpretation?
Yeah, you can, and quite a few do, because very few people seem to come in right at 20,000 because their invoices aren't at that amount. We do ask you to itemize them though, and often we're getting receipts from a Costco, and we're not sure which part of that receipt applies to the business. So please itemize. It's really important. Otherwise, we're going to spend a lot of time going back and forth.
Okay, that's a great suggestion there. Is this application for funding retroactive projects that are already completed?
Oh. It's any expenses that began after June 1st, 2020, up until March 31st, 2021.
Okay, after June and
1st.
June 1st until the end of March. I own a small sport and recreation facility. Can I apply? I have a lot of out-of-town clients. Sports and recreation is not allowed to open now. Do I apply assuming it will open again soon?
Yeah. Today I requested clarification on gyms, and I'm afraid they're not eligible for this.
Gyms, okay.
If that's what they are, a gym.
So we're a restaurant and added a pickup window. Didn't work until we added signage, and now it is saving us. Does that qualify?
Yes, it does. The pickup window doesn't. The signage, if it's permanent, will, but if it's temporary, it's marketing.
Okay. If a business had to build a patio for outdoors to serve customers, restaurant for this example, am I able to apply for funding for the supplies, tables, chairs, umbrellas? As well, we have had to move our business to a takeout self-serve business, and we have purchased freezers so that customers can grab and go with items such as lasagnas. Are either of these costs eligible?
Yeah, they're both eligible. That's a great pivot. The freezer, I think, is a fantastic pivot.
Great. We've been told that we can apply now for work, expansion of the patio, that will be done in the spring after April 1st. That answer was given when the application process first came out. Is that still the case
Yes.
in case there is no spring funding for the project?
Yes, it is. Still submit now, please.
Okay, so there's your answer, Jeff. So we're a restaurant and added a tablet to have skip the dishes delivered. Would that be eligible?
Yes, it is. But please keep in mind that the minimum buy-in starts, or the minimum amount that you need to have $2,500 worth of expenses.
Right. If anyone else on the call here, the panel as well, I do have my question window up, so I can't see you if you're waving your hand at me. So please, if you had anything else to add, just jump in. The next question here, our music festival, typically held in person, had to pivot to an online format last year and had significantly less ticket sales as a direct result of COVID-19. Would this still qualify?
The revenue portion does not qualify, but the expense to put the concert on would.
To an online format, okay. And then just going back to the previous question about gyms, it's actually a synthetic ice rink. So would that change eligibility?
I don't know. I'll have to double check. Again, if you could email me, and I'll double check tomorrow.
All right, Amanda. So if you can get in touch with Bill, he will look into that. Is directional signage considered marketing?
My personal thought is, I'll double check. It's just directional?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Sharon, if you have more details, if you can type them in there. So we'll maybe come back to that one in just a moment here.
Yeah, if you're in an area that like a plaza and you're trying to get people around the corner to come to your thing, then that's different than marketing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've got an arrow in the company name. But again, if you want to reach out to me tomorrow, I'm happy to go back and forth.
Sure. With respect to the answer about the pickup window at the restaurant, could you clarify why doesn't the pickup window qualify, but the permanent signage does?
No, the pickup window does qualify.
The pickup window does qualify.
I'm sorry. If I said differently, the pickup window does qualify.
Okay, thanks for clearing that up. Is this program to reimburse for past COVID-related expenses, or can we apply for reimbursement on future COVID pivot equipment expenses?
Okay, you can apply now, please. We want you to make sure you have a quote, and the quote has the company name on it that is going to be supplying it. We want to make sure that if we're holding funds for you, that we're holding the right amount. You might think it's $10,000 and it's 20. So we want to make sure you have the proper quote.
Okay, get a proper quote. That is important. For clarity of receipts and itemizing, can we submit our expenses via an Excel spreadsheet?
Yes.
Yep, Excel is good. So could you just reiterate on the minimum 2,500?
Sure. I'm sorry, I should have said this right at the very beginning. The reimbursement is for expenses from $2,500 to $20,000. If you come in under that 2,500, it's not eligible. And if it's over the 20,000, it's not eligible.
All right, thank you, Bill. And just for the folks on the line, I would just like to mention as well that we did get more details released from the province, and the applications have opened as well for the Ontario Small Business Support Grant. So that is open today. You would have seen an email from us, and I can link that as well in the chat here in just a moment, but that is another opportunity for businesses to consider. Okay, the next question here. Do you recommend applying as soon as possible without full receipts at this time, or do you think it's best to provide all documentation with the application so it's more full and complete?
Yeah. If you don't, it's fine either way. We'd prefer you do it now so that we're not dealing with 100 of these on January 31st. We just know that we're going to do a better job evaluating and making sure all the information is there if we're not trying to go through 50 or 60 in 2 days. If we could spread it out, you'd be helping us a lot, and I think you'd have a better chance of making sure we're asking you the right questions if we want clarity.
All right.
Could I jump in, Rob?
Absolutely.
Back up a question or two, and Bill, I just wanted to clarify, it was around that question around the minimum of 2,500 up to the maximum of 20,000. So if people submit invoices over 20,000, is that okay? But the assistance is cut off at 20. I thought I'd heard earlier that you say that you're not sure if all the expenses are going to be eligible, so you might put in for like 25,000, but knowing you'll just get 20.
You're right, Brian. But I do ask you not to put in $50,000 worth, and then we'll have to go through them all. But if try and stay as close to that $20,000 mark. There's very little that's not eligible. You're smart business people. You'll be able to take a look at your invoices and say that was COVID related or not COVID related.
Thanks.
All right. So we have a little bit more on the signage. So
Okay.
the signage is specifically to promote footpath travel through a farmer's market to ensure good flow and ensure that they comply with social distancing.
Yeah, that's an excellent use of the funds.
Perfect. So there is your answer, Sharon. Is this program the same as the one recently announced by the province? So I'm guessing that is the Ontario Small Business Support Grant, and those are two different programs.
Two different programs, and I believe the one today was based on revenue, but the one from the province?
That's right. Yes, and if you go to Grey County's website, grey.ca, we do have a section on there, COVID-19 resources for businesses. And I'm going to put that in the chat as well. That's a helpful link for you. And you'll see that we do have a button if I share my screen here. So this is the web page, and if you go to financial supports for local businesses and download the document here, this is a chart that Jacinda has made up for you, for your benefit, that does quickly summarize all of the different programs that are available to businesses here. Have I frozen?
How far along he got there?
Yeah, I think we're at the generate question, Jacinda.
The what question?
The one from JW.
Oh,
Actually, Lucinda, he was just showing the chart. If you want to, our gray COVID business resource page, we have a COVID resource business page, and when you go to that page, you're able to access a chart that has all of the funding on it. And Rob was going to show you the Ontario Small Business Support Grant that just came out today, that is available through the province, so that you could see that is a different form of funding that is available, a different grant that is available.
okay. And is Rob back to keep going with the questions?
I think I'm back. Can you hear me all right?
Yep, good.
All right, we are now hotspotting a phone. We'll see how this recording turns out. Sorry to everybody that's following along. Okay, so if a hardware store is now curbside only, as it was in the spring, and has had to move computers, wiring, etc., to manage having everything at the front of the store, is this eligible?
Again, those types of things are eligible. The question will be the hardware store, does it rely to that, back to that retail question, does it rely on tourism for a significant portion of its revenue?
Okay, I think that is helpful. And Jen does mention that yeah, she does wonder, is hardware considered tourism if there's many cottagers here doing renovations? Are staff wages eligible, as increased staffing will be required to ensure compliance with COVID-19 regulations?
Yeah, they are. We have some applicants that have hired extra staff for COVID tracing or additional cleaning efforts, so things along those lines, or ambassadors to help control crowds. Yes, they would be included.
Okay. You suggested a patio. I know I can get quotes for tables, etc., but contractors aren't working right now to give quotes for the decor. Can I do a lumber quote plus labor? We really wanted to put one in this summer, but had to hold back.
Yeah, we're not going to get in the way. Do the best you can, but make sure you put a note in there saying that the contractors are quoting right now so we understand it.
And Dave wants clarity. Can I apply for the tourism fund and the Ontario fund, separate invoices to each, of course? And yes, absolutely, Dave, you can apply to both. All right, so I'm seeing the questions are slowing down here. If you have any others, please don't be shy about typing those in. In the meantime, I will try to share a screen here again, but I'm getting a little bit nervous about it, to be honest. I don't know why it went down last time. Are you seeing that all right, folks? So this is the COVID support for businesses. And as you can see, one more click, COVID support for businesses here. And this is where you would click for that table that I mentioned that Jacinda has put together, that's full of links for the different programs that are available out there. So you'll see the links that you need for the Ontario the COVID Tourism Response Fund, as well as above it, the Ontario Small Support Grant. So this is the one that opened today, and it's $10,000 to $20,000 to help small businesses that have been required to close. So I think that would be a good place for you to check out. As well, on that page, you'll see that there are other supports for businesses. We do have our business support line. If you do find yourself going through and you get into the weeds and you have questions or concerns, give us a call. We do have staff manning the line. You'll probably get a chance to speak with Jacinda, and she will do her best to give you the answer that you need to, or help point you to the right source of truth out there, as there are quite a few programs and quite a few different places to be going for information. So going back to some questions here. If we've applied to another grant for the same expenses and not heard back yet, can we apply?
Yes, you can apply. It's whether you're awarded. If you're awarded for both, there is an opportunity that there will be spot checks on, on groups that are on the awards that are given out. And if you've received funding from both of those grants and they see it's for the exact same thing, somebody might claw some money back. So just keep that in mind. You may apply for both and hear from both on the same day. I'd recommend you only take it from one source, because you may end up being asked to give it back later when you may or may not have it.
All right, thank you for that, Bill. Can the wages to support the 2021 tourist season qualify? As you have suggested, the cutoff date for this expense is March 31st.
Yeah, I would put it in your application. Make sure you detail that it is for sometime later in 2021. What will happen is the funds will not flow until you provide proof that those wages were actually passed out.
Okay, thanks, Bill. And yes, I did have a request there for your email address in the chat, so I've just added that there, bsullivan@rto7.ca.
Right.
So this attendee is asking, are events considered a tourism attraction? It's not in the main definitions. If yes, what happened if this event is in the summer or fall? And what happened if it had to be canceled due to government guidelines for gathering limits?
Okay, I assume that they're asking about last summer or fall. It is included in the what's eligible, and those expenses would be eligible as well. Similar to a restaurant that spends money putting in plexiglass and then they're asked to close, those expenses would be covered as well.
Okay, thank you. Would landscaping expenses to modify a patio for a new entrance to accommodate one-way traffic flow and social distancing qualify?
That's a new one, but yes.
Good.
I think you'd have to look at, is it excessive or not? Is it enough just to get the job done, or are you redoing the entire area? You have to be careful, just,
Mm-hmm. All right, now this one, I don't think this is for you, Bill, and I might rely on my colleagues on the call who had a little more time to sort through the business grant stuff that came out today. So April 2020 was not a huge drop in sales for me, as it is generally a slow month for us. Does that mean the Ontario grant program is not possible? If anyone wants to take that one, maybe you, Jacinda?
So I was also thinking about that question today when it came out. There are other funding options in the past that gave you an option to use, March 2019 to March 2020, or the last 3 months before the first lockdown. But I haven't found an answer to that, and unless someone else has found it in the guidelines, I will follow up and try and find an answer though. And if that is the case, if that person wants to send me an email today or tomorrow, and I can see if I have an answer. It's a good question.
All right, thank you very much, Jacinda. So I'm just putting Jacinda's email address in the chat there if you do have a question about some of the other grants. So you can find it there, Dave. PPE is required to be supplied to both the employee and the customer. Are these eligible expenses? So hand sanitizer stations, face masks, gloves, etc.
Yes, they are.
All right, So we have gotten to the end of our questions here. Does anybody else on the panel here have anything that they would like to add? Oh, we got a few more coming in here. Okay, so for future funding, would things like Ministry of Labor, Health and Safety training for employees qualify?
For this particular, for our program?
I do believe so, yes.
I guess if it's COVID related, then yes, it would apply.
Okay, if it's COVID related, it would apply. The info for new businesses will be released soon if you were not in business for the 2019-2020 comparison for the Ontario grant. Okay, thank you for that, Mike. So these are businesses, I think there was some discussion on our team about that today, businesses that weren't in operation during the period that for the Ontario grant last year. So it sounds like there's maybe some more information coming on that front. Did you have anything more to add about that, Jacinda?
Yeah, I did with the help with one of our businesses. She was able to run through the process, the application process, which is really helpful because it seemed that they chose a comparison rather than April 2019 to April 2020 because they opened after April 2019. It compares February 2020 to April 2020. So that's what it did on her application. So if you opened after April 2019, because you don't have that month to compare, then it looks like it's doing February 2020. So if you're on the call and you opened after April 2019, it seems that if you want to check out February 2020 revenue, it looks like that's what it's comparing. And it also, just a couple of other points, in the application process, when you put in your business information, and the issue is that you need a business number to be able to even start the application, which is hard for us to continue to find out what more information is needed. One of the questions does ask if you're seasonal. So, and we weren't able to go in that direction, but it does kind of maybe indicate that seasonal operators might be eligible. But I would recommend you going to the application form, and it really is a clicking of the box and continuing forward. So I think if you try it, I think then you'll know whether or not you'll be eligible or not. With that last question from one of the businesses, they could just try that and see if there's a different option. I feel like there might not be a different option, but they could try.
Okay. Okay, so this question, we hired video equipment, editing program, staff person, etc., to offer online services during lockdown. Would these expenses be included? I'm thinking that's directed at you, Bill.
Yeah, could they send that to me, please, so I can communicate with them?
Sure, so please contact Bill on that one. Would additional sanitation costs for an event, i.e. washing stations and porta potties, be eligible for an event in August 2021? So this
Yes, they would. Yes, they would. If it's COVID related.
Perfect.
Which I imagine it is.
We had to complete food handling certification to operate an ice cream store as a pivot to our bed and breakfast offering. For online training, would that be eligible?
Again, if it's COVID related training, yes.
Okay. And again, keep in mind that $2,500 minimum on that too. Is a second round of funding a sure thing or just in development amongst the counties?
Okay, it's in development.
So that's in development. Would this program be extended if the lockdown drags on and reopening the province is further delayed? Gary, I'm not sure if are you applying, referencing the Ontario program there or the tourism program here? Bill, if I'm correct, the tourism program will not be extended, as you mentioned, because of the funding requests.
Yeah, as far as we know, from the information we have today, it doesn't extend.
And as for the provincial program, I think we'll just have to wait and see what the province comes out with for any changes on that one. Would a company providing health and safety fee advice be covered for their services?
We had a question similar to this today, and the answer is no.
It would not be. So would changing your business to be more online and getting a website upgrade be covered?
Yes, you have to take a look at what is related to, if it's an overhaul or someone's creating a brand new website. I think we have to take a closer look at just what it was you really needed to do and what was done.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So would successful grants, could they expect payments to come in stages, or is it one lump sum that those will be paid out in?
It will be stages. There will be some that will flow earlier than other parts. There's always going to be a holdback because it is government funding. There's always a holdback to make sure that the reporting comes in.
Okay. Thank you. So we have emptied our question bank again. So if you have anything else, we do have a few more minutes. We can take a few more questions.
Rob, if there are no questions, I wouldn't mind just mentioning a couple of other funding opportunities from the chart. Is that possible?
Absolutely, please do.
Okay. So do you mind I just share my screen? Can I share my screen?
Yep. Yep, you should be able to use the share at the bottom there.
Okay. So if you can you see the screen?
Yes,
Okay.
I can.
So I was told that the Ontario Small Business Support Grant, once approved, it says that there's a message that it'll take about 2 weeks to receive the money once it's approved. And the application deadline is March 31st, 2021. Bill was able to talk about the tourism grant. There's one that's been out for a little while. It's on the same page as the Ontario Small Business Grant. It's the property tax and energy bill rebates. So as of December 26th, any business in Grey County would now be eligible under the lockdown restrictions. And this one is for specific businesses in different sectors. So it'll let you, if you go to the site, it'll actually allow you to be able to see whether you're eligible. So I would recommend going to that site. As I said, these two are connected to this one up here, the small business grant. So it's all one kind of file. So your business would be under one file. And you can always go back and make changes and edits. If you realize that you've already submitted one grant, you can always go back and continue the application for the other grants. The other thing I just wanted to mention is the Canada Emergency Business Account. So it's been out for a very long time, but it is still available, and it's increased to 60,000, zero interest, and 25% forgivable portion. Just another one though, if you're not eligible for this loan, it is a loan, it's not funding, but it's a loan. I would consider the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund, and it is still open with your local Community Futures Development Corporation. So you can just click on here and find out which corporation you would speak with. Go to them first before you go through the federal site. But again, RRF is an option, especially if you're not eligible for the CEBA. And I think that's all I wanted to kind of highlight for these other funding opportunities. And feel free to reach out, and also feel free to let me know if there was an issue with your application or if you weren't eligible and you thought you were. I'm not saying I can fix it, but it's more like the more information we know, the more we can help the other businesses.
Thank you for that, Jacinda. I think that's very helpful. It is good to know that there are multiple supports out there for different avenues that people can go about to try to get a little bit of funding to get through this difficult time. A few more questions came in here. Can our application include a variety of expenses incurred during a variety of pivots during COVID, Bill?
Yeah, absolutely. If you can just provide us with a some short detail. We call them multiple projects. So if you just give us a little bit of detail, it doesn't have to be paragraphs and paragraphs, just a short sentence is great.
Okay. Is RTO PPE Recovery Fund Round 2 up to 1,000 still available?
Yeah, currently we've distributed $192,000 through that program. I'm trying to free up we are trying to free up a little bit more to help out there. We'll know better by the end of next week if we have some funds that we can put into that program. But right now it's temporarily closed. We hope we can. We're not doing any marketing right now, so we may have some funds that we can put into that program to help out.
Okay, thanks, Bill. So someone had asked for the web address. I have just pasted that in the chat if you would like that for the chart that Jacinda was just showing.
And just a note that if you just keep the link, it'll be automatically updated when I update it, right, Rob? On the site, if you go back to the site and look at it, a week time, rather than downloading the PDF.
Yeah, it is better to check back regularly. If you did notice when we had it open there, it did say updated on the 14th. So today is our most recent version. So as we get more information, we are going to keep updating that link. So that link will stay the same, but if you download the file, you're not going to get the updates. Dave says, you guys have been so helpful to our business over the years, but what you guys have done since last March is better than any other agencies that we've seen. Thank you. Thanks very much, Dave. We appreciate that. And I think I can say that we at Grey County are very appreciative of the resilience that our community has shown, especially our business community and especially our tourism businesses that we openly recognize are really feeling the brunt of this harder than anyone else. The challenges that you're facing on a daily basis, and I totally feel for you that it feels like you maybe get to take one step forward and then another lockdown comes around and it's 2 steps back, and that must just be so incredibly draining emotionally, but you are persevering, and our teams, we're here to help as best as we can in our roles, pointing you to the sources of funding, answering your questions. So please don't hesitate to reach out by email, by phone. Jacinda's just put that phone number in the chat again there. We are here, we're listening, we're here to help. And we will do what we can. And thank you, Allison. The email address is in there as well. Is there anything else that anyone would like to add? I'm not seeing any more questions. I do appreciate the nice comments coming through from everyone. Bill, is there anything you wanted to finish off here?
No, just one last thing. If your neighbors haven't heard of our program or any of these programs, please share them. We're all in this together. We have a better product at the end of this if we have more businesses in business. So please share this as much as you can. Thank you.
Yes.
And thanks to Rob and Brian and Jacinda and Allison and Heather. Thanks for this opportunity. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to this group. It's fun. I wish I could see everyone. It's fun to be back out here in front. This is not something I enjoy doing, but tonight was fun. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Bill, to you and your team as well. You're really carrying the load on this program, so we really appreciate that. Well, I think that seems to be it, everyone. Again, if you think of any other questions, you can certainly send them our way, and we'll do our best. I will be sharing a recording of tonight's, and hopefully that internet disconnection didn't ruin too much there. But feel free to share those with others. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Good night.